Kyle Shanahan's role and where the Niners are right now. I think most Niner fans give Shanahan a 100% pass. Like, dude, you were good last year. You built this up. You had some injuries. No fault on you. How do you – is there some culpability? And I don't need you guys to say like a percentage. But if there is, what is it? Who starts this one? Maverick.
I'd say there's a little bit of blame on Shanahan. I wouldn't go 100% blame on Shanahan, but I mean, I went into the year 100% confident in his ability as a head coach, as a play caller and everything. But there were times this season where a lot of people questioned his in-game adjustments and play calling. I think we all touched on the no Kyle use check on fourth down. I think that was a big one and a couple different plays, but there's just individual plays that we can pick out. I don't really blame him for the injuries. That's just the luck of the draw at sometimes. And we saw what he can do when he has Deebo Samuel, when he has Brandon Ayuk. The offense looks like one of the best in the NFL. So if they can have those injuries, I would go back to being much more confident in him. But there are a couple small weaknesses that we saw this year.
So I'm a believer that you could nitpick any coach basically and say, what the hell was that? I think Shanahan has done a fine job play calling. Injuries, I would say the only situation, I wouldn't put it on him. I would put it more on the training staff over there in MetLife Stadium. Why was the cleats not spoken about? Why wasn't they looking at different sizes? Why was the players able to go out on the field and not have a change in cleats after they were stating that field felt sticky? I would put that more on the training staff than Kyle Shanahan, because it is the training staff's job to figure those things out. That's not Kyle Shanahan's job. Kyle Shanahan's job is basically to check in with the training staff, but it's not his job to basically get people different size cleats.
Yep.
Jack.
Yeah, there's a few different ways to go with this one, and really the first one would be the injuries. You got to kind of go with what was said at the beginning by Nick. You know, part of the reason they're having so many injuries is because they're bringing so many guys in that are hurt to begin with. They're taking so many risks on guys that have a history of injury, and then we're seeing those guys are the ones that are being injured throughout the course of the season, and they're having to deal with it, or they're not bringing guys to take over their place that are good enough. When you look at the turnovers, some of those turnovers, you don't want, it's always not Shanahan's fault on the turnovers. He's not throwing the ball, but his play calling, and we talked about this a little bit, is part of it. You look at you put out the piece on him today, and when you look at Shanahan over the course of his career, his teams have thrown more interceptions than fumbles when it comes to turnovers every year that he's been in the league. When you look at what you had mentioned Shanahan or Harbaugh with that. Harbaugh's time in the 49ers, they never threw more interceptions than fumbles in terms of turnovers. They were, and part of that is the way that they play call. When you have a 3rd and 8 and you're at the 14-yard line, do you throw a pass? Yeah, if you want to throw a pass, you call a pass, but you don't call a pass that's going to be a risky throw,
right?
In order to get the first down, which we saw on the first pick on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of little things like that, and he definitely has some room to improve. Mm-hmm. And I know when we look at him, this is a long-term history of his. So the likelihood of it changing isn't very much.
Yeah, you think of him being a young coach. He's been in the league. He's been a coordinator since 2008. 2008. Nick.
To clarify, we're talking about his role and where the team is this season, not just injury specific, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I already touched on how a way to prevent all the injuries is from just avoiding signing so many players and drafting players that have these injury concerns. Talking about his role and where the team is this season, I have to question some of his personnel decisions. Going back, I'm going to lay out a very specific example against the Eagles. Against the Eagles, Jerick McKinnon had 14 carries in that game. Jeff Wilson had 3 carries in that game. That's a very specific example. Look at the two players now. Look at the two players now. Why is Jerick McKinnon getting significant run over Jeff Wilson Jr. after seeing him? He's a physical beast, that guy. He should be getting so many carries, and it's not like he just bursted on the scene out of nowhere. That wasn't the case whatsoever. It was the roster politics behind it all that Kyle Shanahan signed Jerick McKinnon 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. He was a scat back. He was a third down back with the Vikings. But hey, let's make him one of the richest running backs in the NFL because I believe I can make him an elite running back. That backfired. And, going back to personnel decisions, if I remember correctly, Weston Richburg was primarily a guard with the Giants. Missed 12 games with a concussion. I could be wrong on that, but I remember he played some time.
I don't know about that, but he did miss time with a concussion.
Well, he missed the last 12 games with a concussion.
Yes.
I'll have to go back with it. But that's another example of just Shanahan having this huge vision and investing heavily in that vision and having it completely backfire. So I question his personnel decisions and even playing Deebo Samuel at running back when you're beating the Patriots by 25 points only for him to get injured on a pitch play. Of course, that wasn't obviously not the goal, but Fred Warner's out on the field in blowouts. And that's the kind of stuff I question with Kyle Shanahan, the in-game, what do I do when I'm up kind of a thing.
Running back's a great call. Punt returner, he still hasn't gotten his best returner on the field consistently. Quarterback, that's his room. He wanted these quarterbacks. He brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. He drafted CJ Beathard in 2017. They signed Mullins in 2017 and added no one to that room the last 3 years. That's what he wanted. Beathard's been worthless. He kept him around. That's his fault. They could have drafted, I don't know, Jalen Hurts, Jared Stidham, anyone else. And now they're stuck with this. So that's on him. And then also the turnovers. Jack mentioned it. I want to give credit. I have a new guy, Monday afternoons, Anthony Jana. He's just an older guy from Australia. Very perceptive. And I had him on for the first time on Monday. And he was going through like, hey, why don't we not absolve Kyle Shanahan for these turnovers? Let's acknowledge how his aggressive executive decisions put the Niners in this situation. And you go back and look at what Harbaugh was doing and compare him. As Jack alluded to, Harbaugh never had turnover issues with the Niners. The Niners had turnover issues before he got here. Alex Smith threw a bunch of picks before Harbaugh got here, but he made it a point of emphasis. And how did he do that? Well, he just had a very conservative philosophy. They would play for field goals. They didn't care how many points they scored. They wouldn't beat themselves on offense. Harbaugh's offense never beat itself. Kyle Shanahan's offense does a lot. So while he's an excellent coach and has the potential to be the next Bill Walsh, he needs to stop beating himself. He needs to stop beating himself. And last year he did a good job. Still at 23 turnovers. That's too much. I mean, the most Harbaugh ever had was 22, and that was in 2014. So I'm just saying, you got this great defense. Dial it back a little bit. Win with your defense, Kyle. You never had this situation before. You never had this defense before, but use it.
One thing to just throw out there. So Richburg, this is according to Pro Football Reference, where I pulled this from. He started 16 games at left guard, or he's listed as a guard his first year with the Giants. And after that played center for his remaining time with the Giants.